Welcome to Riverdale After Dark, a podcast about the CW's Riverdale that is dark but honorable. I'm Alex.
When you go to the darkest place on earth, New York City, it must be a shopping excursion, the scariest thing you can do. I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are going to be talking about Chapter 69, Nice Men of Honor on Riverdale. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry.
You gotta do it, dude.
You gotta do it,
bro.
You don't. So this is the latest episode of Riverdale. This is also a big deal because this is not so much a crossover as a tee-up.
It's a tease.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tease of Katy Keene, which is premiering the next day on the CW. Depending on how you're listening to it, maybe it was decades ago.
Yes.
I don't know.
This is probably the last piece of content that was ever created before the apocalypse happened, and this is what some explorer is going to blow on a copy of this podcast and then be like, wow.
Wow, Katy Keene crossed over with Riverdale. That's very cool.
I'm sure with Alex's dying breath, he's going to post this podcast.
Exactly.
I will. As the bombs land, I'll be like, and send.
The people have to hear this.
So we got to talk about this. We got to do a recap. And I want to. I'm going to.
Now here's the thing.
Yes,
I wasn't here. I was out of town for last
This is
week's
where.
episode.
This is what I wanted to start with.
Yeah, and this is where I wanted to start. Also, because here's the thing: there's some stuff happened in the last episode. At the very end, that it was pretty exciting. I wanted to say it's a pretty fun. With the Archie.
Right.
Oh, that's what you want
to talk
about.
So here's the thing.
Fucking asshole.
Jughead and his girlfriend, or future ex-girlfriend, Betty.
How dare you?
They are having a rough patch.
Sure.
The last
Their
episode,
end game.
I don't know about that. The last episode was a little bit rough. As we
Sure, they fought. They got back together.
Yes, but there's cracks.
Okay. Well, so actually, how about this? Why don't I recap where we are at this point, and then we can jump right in on this as like the cliffhanger that leads into this.
I think it's bullshit that he misses an episode. We got to hold his hand for a whole fucking thing. You know
hold my hand. No, you're thinking about how Betty holds Archie's hand at the last of the episode. That's the hand holding I think we're talking about.
I said you nicely.
So here's what's happening on Riverdale. Lots of stuff is happening on Riverdale, and we can kind of go character by character. First of all, there's Archie Andrews. Archie Andrews manages a boxing gym / community center. He's also a high school student.
He's also
sometimes
in charge of a construction company.
Sure, he's also in charge of a construction company. He's a pharmacist. He is a pet doctor. He's an astronaut.
Egg connoisseur.
Egg connoisseur.
Also part-time vigilante.
Part-time vigilante. Not anymore. I think he's given that up.
Yeah.
He has
He used to play the guitar.
Future musician.
He can't do everything. He's not Sabrina Spellman, you guys.
Yeah.
So he is doing all that stuff, but he's also dealing with his new Uncle Frank, who is in town. He never met Uncle Frank before, but he is very bonded with Uncle Frank. Yeah. And Uncle Frank, so far, has a bit of a spotty past, I think we can say.
Yes, he's suspect.
He's suspect,
mom doesn't like him.
Seems to have a good heart, or at least Archie thinks he has a good heart.
That's definitely true.
Yes.
Archie, the best judge of character.
Sure. He loves everything like a puppy dog.
Exactly. And puppies are the most responsible creatures. You can
So
always
that's what's
trust
going on
a
with
puppy.
Archie. Meanwhile, Veronica is dealing with a bunch of stuff as well, a requisite family stuff. She is still feuding with her father, Hiram Lodge.
Yep.
In fact, trying to take down his rum business by starting her own maple rum-based business.
With
and
Cheryl.
in order to do that, with Cheryl Blossom, who we'll get to in a moment, and in order to do that, she has taken over the Maple Club. Pretty on the nose, if you ask me. And running that, instead of giving people what they wanted, which was sex, she's giving them drinks.
Yes. It's become a private drinking club.
It's become a private drinking
Rather than
club
private
run
sex
by
club.
teenagers versus the dance club run by teenagers that's happening below Pops,
Yes.
which is also run by teenagers.
That is 100% true. But Pop checks in, and he's very old, the opposite of a teenager.
Yeah, Pop checks in, Dunstan checks out.
That's 100% true.
So that's what's going on with Veronica. Also of note, she has given up the Lodge name. She has decided to become Veronica Luna instead, and she has been struggling with which college to go to because her father bought her way into most other colleges, so she has been pursuing her own path.
Yes.
Now, on to the other couple-y side of things. Let's talk about Jugbug. I think that's what it's called.
That's, I think, what people say. That's the most logical way to say it.
Sure.
Jugbug.
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 Couple of things going on with him. First of
Jugbug
all,
was a song at the end of the original Return of the Jedi, I think.
yeah, Jugbug. Jugbug.
That's 100%.
Yeah, I love that. Peach just nodding his head. Yes, yes, yes. I love this. More.
Nope.
Okay.
Jugbug.
So Jughead is attending Stonewall Prep, which is an elite academy. He has been clashing with the preppies who are there. There's a couple of them. I'm going to skirt over some stuff that I'm sure we're going to talk about later. But back a couple of episodes back, a teacher by the name of Mr. Chipping jumped headfirst out the window. He killed himself. We were told it was because he was having an affair with a student named Donna Sweet, who he started to get aggressive and abusive towards. She confessed to as much. The school backed her up on that. Betty and Jughead were a little suspicious about it. We had many discussions here on this podcast
About how that's
that.
a little weird, like we don't know what the deal is, but we had trust in the show that it would eventually come about. And I'm more nervous now than I was before, but I still do think they're going to have an answer.
We'll see what happens. We'll get it talked about that in a moment. However, Donna has put herself forward as an ally to Jughead. She was also hooking up with Moose Mason, who completely weirdly disappeared in the
Vanished
middle of the
without a
night
trace.
forever.
And nobody is following up on that at all, and it's driving me crazy.
Well, guess what? It gets paid off this episode, so it doesn't have to drive you crazy anymore.
Thanks.
No problem. I wrote this show for you. Anytime.
This is a fucked up show.
Well, you're a fucked up guy. So that's what's going on with Donna
Checks
Sweet.
out.
There's another character called Bret Weston Wallace, who is the uber preppy douchebag dude who has been clashing with Jughead. And in fact, it has reached such a height that they challenged each other to a duel.
A duel.
That's
in
what
the
I thought
last
you were
episode.
wanting to talk about.
That is
The duel?
definitely, I knew exactly what he wanted to
What are
talk
you crazy? You know I'm getting for that Archie love.
I really want to talk about their maple teenies. That's the big
Yeah.
thing that I wanted to pick up on from
Does
the
it
last
taste like
episode.
maple, or is it just extracted from maple syrup? And doesn't it taste like a regular rum?
Yeah, I talked about this for a while last episode, as I'm sure you listened to.
Of 100%?
Yes.
1,000,000%. I would never not.
Yes, of course.
would never
So
know.
that's what's going on with Jughead. A couple of other things I'm sure we'll touch on as we get through the episode itself. Now over to Betty. Betty ended up in a little bit of a sticky maple herself when she competed in a quiz show, and her mother, Alice Smith, who is trying to help her out now, just trying to be a helpful little mommy.
Little mommy.
Why would you say
That's
that?
right.
You made it.
She's a helpful.
So weird.
I honestly think she's
Creepy.
credited.
Why would you do that?
She's credited at the end of Riverdale as helpful little mommy.
That's awful.
Imagine a
the
mix.
fact that you just said that.
Helpful little mommy.
Stop saying.
We're all helpful little mommies and
Stop.
daddies.
Stop
You're a helpful
saying-
little daddy, and he's a helpful little mommy.
He can't. Alex can't get it together
Got
to
him.
talk.
Nope.
He got
This is
himself.
hilarious.
I'm out. That's it for me for the rest of the podcast.
All right,
That's
great.
fine. We could bear the standard here.
Yeah. So,
So-
Alice
Yep.
gave her the answers to the quiz show.
Yep.
She,
a
so
helpful little
Alice,
mommy.
trying to help, gave Betty all the answers to the quiz show, which, as we know, is illegal to do.
But Betty didn't read them, and she tore them up, threw
Yeah,
them away.
threw
But
them away.
So
someone-
Betty did the right thing. I'm back now. I'm good.
Yeah.
So Betty
You're
did the
back
right
to
thing.
being a helpful little mommy.
Stop. He was back, and then you derailed him. You
can't help-
derailed him.
When
Stop.
I see a helpful little mommy, I call it a helpful little mommy.
Stop. Let him do his fucking job, man. Otherwise, we'll never
I'm
get through
sweating
this
so
fucking
hard
thing.
right now. Anyway, so she gave her the answers. Betty ended up, as far as we knew, probably getting suspended, probably not getting into Yale like she was hoping to, and also just generally having a reputation thrown under the bus.
Yes.
So that's what's going on with Betty. We'll get to the flash forward, which you wanted to talk about in a second. But over to Cheryl Blossom. Cheryl Blossom, as you mentioned, Pete, is working with Veronica on the bar. Now, the important thing you need to know this episode, which we do helpfully get a flashback to, because there was a couple of seasons past, she was almost... and was sexually assaulted by a guy named Nick St. Clair, who is a horrible douchebag who popped up a couple of times throughout Riverdale. He's played by a seemingly very nice guy named Graham Phillips, so total change of character. He seems very friendly, and everything we've heard is he's nice. I would not assume he is his character.
Yeah, you don't have to think that they cast him because he's like a criminal.
But basically, he tried to assault Cheryl, and in response, Veronica and Josie and the Pussycats death-proofed him and kicked the shit out of him.
It was glorious.
The next time he showed up, Archie beat the shit out of him, and I think broke both of his legs.
And really
really messed him up.
Yeah.
So long tradition of really messing him up on the show, and that's kind of what you need to know about that.
Yes, indeed. And he's risen with even more revenge this episode.
So that all said, the big flash forward, which surprisingly we don't deal with a whole lot in this episode. We've been getting these flash forwards to a couple of weeks from now. I think it's like 2 weeks from now, or maybe even 1 week from now at this point.
Well, interestingly, in this episode, there's no flash forward.
Right.
Yep.
Where we've been getting the tease that Jughead is dead. Maybe Betty killed him, conking him with a rock. And then the last episode ended on this cliffhanger where Archie was comforting Betty. Betty thought, Jughead's never going to come back. What's happening with Jughead? And they just stared into each other's eyes.
And what we get here is we get one hand on the table. Pop's famous chocolate shop. Great spot for close friends and potential lovers to meet up.
Right.
We get one hand on the table. We get a second hand from the other side of the table touching first hand.
A third hand comes from the third side of the table. A fourth hand.
And then I will say a second hand comes on top of the hands to show this is real. This is happening.
So I'll tell you what,
rising.
We talked about this at the end of the last episode, me and Pete. I still think they're like, it's them double blinding us. It's them tricking us to lead us down this road. But there is a thing that happens later in this episode that I do want to talk about that maybe burgeons up this theory a little bit. I don't know.
I mean, we've said this a lot for many years. We've believed in this. We've worshipped at the altar.
I don't want to say we all have.
Well, I think we all have gotten on board with this the entire time.
I don't think that's true.
And that these relationships maybe aren't, I believe the term is endgame you were throwing around, Pete?
Yes, that's Pete's term. He came up with
Pete,
that.
You came up with that. Yes. And congratulations on all you're being paid from Avengers Endgame and just everyone saying the word Endgame randomly.
Every time that happens, Camila Mendez has to send him $50.
Yeah. Wow. Hold on to that money. Yeah. I forget what I was saying, but I just I think there's going to be some shake. It feels like there's shakeups. If it's fake shakeups, I don't think
fake
they
ups,
would,
if you will.
Fake ups. I don't think they would just do fake shakeups, without having any sort of underlying change happening.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. There's so many questions going into whatever is going to happen in 1 or 2 episodes' time. We'll have to see. But with that out of the way, let's jump into the episode proper, Justin.
So my notes start with, first off, let's talk Barchi. So what I just wanted to say, just kidding, we already did that. We jump right into the duel.
The duel.
Which... we have the teacher, Mr. DuPont, leading the children in a series of fights.
Yeah, so what's interesting is normally a duel is one of these, but they go all in on any kind of duel. So there's fencing, there's going to be a fist brawl, and then, of course, chess.
And, of course, like all great battles, you save the chess for last. I think that's where the saying comes from. Save the chess for last.
Yeah. I have a question and a statement about this. I'll say my statement first. My statement is I have been joking for weeks that after the football game and the quiz show, this is all going to end in an academic decathlon, Billy Madison style. They ended up doing an academic triathlon, I think.
Basically,
so there was that.
Not a lot of academics in fighting with fists, but
sure, you learn something. You learn
sweet science.
Sweet science. Yes, there you go. The big question that I have is all 3 of these events run by a secret society based on a secret society's rules happened in the middle of the classroom with all of Stonewall Prep watching.
It's like they took whatever they were supposed to be learning about that day. They were like, "No, we're going to watch these 2 kids fight." They're gonna watch these
Well, my
fuck each
problem
other
is
up.
it's a secret society.
Not that secret.
It's not that secret.
but
They
if-
did have a public party in the last.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like Mr. DuPont was like, "Hey, in my class today, my English class, two of the children will be fencing," and everyone else is like, "Oh, cool, let's go check it out."
Yes. Today in English, bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah, and we get they have to choose a second, and of course, Bret chooses fan favorite character, some random dude.
I think it was Jonathan, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. There's Bret Weston Wallis, there's Donna Sweet, there's Joan and Jonathan. Joan and Jonathan mostly stand there looking smug.
Don't do much.
They
of
don't do
anything.
much.
Have they said words?
They've said their names like Pokemon.
Yeah, that's cool.
Jonathan.
And then Jughead chooses Donna, and
Yes.
that's very interesting to me. I talked about this last time I was here with you two, my friends. That I feel like Jughead is behaving so oddly this season. Feels like he is not being naive and a little bit. Maybe he's wowed by being at Stonewall and blindsided by the potential that this being there is going to give him for his life. But he feels like he's being so trusting of the many people here, and all that they have done is take advantage of him.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating.
Well, I think there's part of that. Again, we talked about this a little bit the last episode, as you well know. But the idea that he wants to be accepted by someplace, so they are accepting him, and that's why he's a little more guileless than he usually is. But there was also that line in the last episode where he said, "There's a bigger game that we're playing." To Betty, this episode, this is jumping ahead, but they play chess, and ostensibly he's training for his chess match. But I felt like that was another indicator that Betty and Jughead have something going on that we don't know what it is yet.
And also, Betty has murder boards. So
She has murder boards, so there is that. But I think like that's more the public-facing thing. It feels like there's like a sub-murder board. There's her public murder board, and then there's something else that she's doing with Jughead that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. If we were to count up all the plot lines going on, there's all the ones that you talked about in the recap. There's the fact that other parts of Riverdale have been videotaped,
Right.
Randomly. We get a lot of what's that?
A lot
the
of
front
doors,
doors, and the camera keeps getting closer. We have. It's hard to remember.
Are you
Charles and
really going
Chick.
to go
Yeah.
through all of them? This is too much to go
but
through.
what I'm
We've
saying
got
is
the Gargoyle King. We've got the Black Hood.
simmering. Dark Betty being hypnotized.
Tangerine.
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 So I'm not going to relax. I'm just saying there's a.
What are you getting so bad about?
There's a lot of.
What's his point? What the fuck is he
Wait
getting?
until don't stop interrupting him. Let him get to the point. I want
And
to hear it.
the point is, there are a lot of things going on that have to be resolved this season, and we don't know who. Like, so much is focused on Jughead dying, and that seems to be very much revolving around Stonewall. Yet there's these other pieces, and to say that Jughead and Betty have something else going on is a crazy understatement.
All right.
Sure. All right. Let's follow each plot line, right?
Yes.
Because, again, with this episode, things have a couple of different trains running.
Yeah.
So why don't we keep going with Jughead? So that's certainly the
Yes.
big plot line, as usual, in this episode.
We jump. This is sort of an all-fight episode, so that's fun that we get to jump back and forth with that. We get the fencing match first.
Right.
Bret wins. It was hard to tell who was who when I was watching this because they are dressed the
Great
same
for the
with hats on.
stunt man to be
It
able
is.
to,
It's very
do
nice.
stuff.
Bret wins the first one. That's
Do we want to talk through Betty's storyline at the same time? Because they kind of weave back and forth a little bit.
yeah, sure.
Okay, so just to jump back, after they announced the academic triathlon, Betty finds out that she's been suspended for a week,
Yeah, the
can't go
mom-
to prom, is stripped off the blue and gold, and Bret is filing a restraining order. That
So-
was a lot of stuff to lay on her.
That was really interesting the way that happened. It wasn't Betty in the principal's office. It was Betty's mom in the principal's office. And
sweet
Betty's
little
mom
mommy.
comes out and was just like,
Her
wow.
sweet little mommy comes out and tells her a couple of things.
Oh my God, what just happened? So like,
Good little mommy.
I was trying to see if I could say it out loud without completely
just stop
losing it.
Stop saying.
It was helpful, little mommy. Let's just be clear. I'm going to try to be a helpful little mommy to you by reminding you of the actual saying.
So, yeah, I just thought this was really funny the way the mom is kind of like, wow, that principal really hates you. And like all these horrible things are happening. to you, and like her and her mom just kind of shrug it off because they're just kind of happy to be together. And I think it's both sweet and kind of maddening at the same time.
Well, it's crazy because Alice Cooper was going in there to be like, "Hey, principal, my daughter didn't do anything wrong. I cheated."
Yeah.
And he's
you
like,
should arrest me.
Yeah. Can I? This is an interesting structural thing I thought about this episode that never happens on Riverdale. And we talk about this all the time, but usually with Riverdale, it's like people come in for a scene, they have a scene, and something crazy happens, and they're like, well, on to whatever the next plot line is unconnected. There were several times in this episode where scenes actually connected to each other, which was not bad, but strange and different. And the reason I bring that up now is because they're talking in the hallway. Betty is like, well, this is a lot of stuff to lay on me. And I was fully expecting that it would cut off and then go over to Archie or something. But instead, she starts thinking about Mr. Chipping. And then she runs off and they see the murder board. And she and Alice decide to team up and find out what's really going on in Stonewall. So it was almost like 2 to 3 scenes in a row. It was like a regular television show.
It was fun that way. And things connected backwards to earlier episodes seamlessly as opposed to sort of reigniting, having to go back to things. What a pain to move a murder board. Let's be honest.
You got to put up all the thread.
The yarn.
But I was, part of me was super happy that Betty and her mom were having this night moment, but part of me was also upset at Betty for not being mad at her mom for all the stuff that she's blowing up.
I mean, she's Alice. You kind of just got to move on and roll with it, right?
Yeah, you keep saying that, but eventually that's going to get tired.
Well, it did, though. It did. It reached a boiling point in the In Treatment episode, and I feel like past that point, Betty has been like, my mom's my mom. Alice is trying to be a supportive mom in her own crazy way. And in this episode, it was just great seeing her team up with Betty and them investigate a mystery together.
Great dynamic duo to have there. Like, much better than whoever Betty was solving mysteries with before.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
So from there, we move into the discovery. Well, following the Betty plotline, Moose just was in the army the whole time. He just shows up.
That was crazy.
Yeah. They find in Mr. Chipping's stuff that all these army pamphlets, and then we literally cut into the...
Well, there's a couple of things that happen first, just to touch on them. So they break down the murder board. They decide they're going to go after Donna. And they talk to Mrs. Chipping, who we've never seen and has never been mentioned before.
Literally, they say, Mr. Chipping has a wife. Really?
Right.
Yes, he does. Let's go talk to her. And then the next scene with them is them.
I loved her line, too, where they're like, anything strange about him? And she was like, well, he was drinking a lot, complaining about the Baxter Brothers books, as if those are of equal weight. Like, he was hitting the sauce really hard, also complaining about his job.
Yeah. Well,
which is, Betty kind of perked up on because she's like, oh, what's going on with the Baxter books? Because if Jughead's got to be doing that, she's like looking out for Jughead's maybe future job.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I think was good about the storyline is not only did I like her teaming up with Alice, but also that underlying she is trying to protect Jughead, and that ultimately they realize they don't have to protect each other, but they can be there for each other, I thought was nice. And it continues, contrary to what you're saying, Justin, it really pushes the fact that they are responsible adults for each other.
They're great friends.
Oh, boy.
They're great friends.
Oh, my God. So they do, yes, that Moose just turns up. Moose was in the army the entire time.
It's just...
They set up Moose vanishing as a central mystery of the season. I thought we were going to slowly have people vanishing, and it was going to be like, what is the secret club at the school?
What is the school doing to these kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it turns out, nope, he was just in the regular army.
Right. Also at the same time, we had the fencing match. We talked about that. Just scanning through my notes here, looking for that. Right, so Chipping, we get a picture from Moose that Chipping was like clearly trying to protect him from something.
Yes.
He first was telling him to... He recruited him there.
For the school, then he was like, you have to leave, you have to leave.
Yeah.
Because Moose is being targeted by, I guess, the the Skull and Quill Club or whoever.
something.
Yeah.
And then we also find out, at least from Moose, he says that Bret videotaped him having sex in the dorm room, said it would be a good addition to his collection.
Yes.
Presumably with Donna. He was having sex with Donna.
I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting question because
Right.
We know Moose, like, his sexuality is a little bit, you don't quite know.
Yeah, he's bisexual, he said.
Fluid.
Yeah, but, like, what is the bribery that is affecting him? Is it because he's having sex with someone that is bad for the politics of the school, or is something a secret he's trying to keep? Like, it's suspect. We don't know.
Yeah. And then right off of that, we get another scene with Betty and Alice where they're picking through the dorm room.
I do like how immediately though Betty was like, "Oh, if you're being videotaped, I'm probably being videotaped." And there was that episode where while Jughead and Betty were having sex, there was a video camera recording.
They were being videotaped.
Yeah.
I liked picking up on that. I'm glad that they didn't just weirdly drop that at all. Yeah. They didn't. Bret, of course, completely denies it. He said, Betty asked him straight up, do you have a tape of me and Jughead? There's a great reaction from Alice in the middle of that, which I liked a lot.
Yeah.
Did you like that?
I liked it.
Yeah. Pete, did you like it?
Let's move on.
No, did you like that reaction?
Sure, yeah, it was
I'm
fun.
not trying to trap you on anything. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it was nice.
Oh, okay. Do you got to go somewhere, Pete? What's going on?
Nope.
All right. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, I want to get through. There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Sure.
So
we got
let's-
all the time in the world, buddy.
We have all the time. I loaded our reel to reel with a lot of tape, so we can just keep going.
Sweet.
So then we, jumping back to the Jughead side of things, we have Mr. DuPont organizing a straight up bare knuckle fist fight between two of his students, his child students.
Sure.
We get that fight, and Jughead just lays.
Oh,
Bret out.
Jughead was a sweet move, man. A little dodge and then follow through right across his jaw.
He's a street fighter.
And
I love that. I loved him laying him out with one
Yes.
punch. I thought that was fun.
And
Glass
he's like,
jaw.
you got a glass jaw. Yeah.
And of course, like all great battles, it will be settled with chess. Chess.
Yes.
The heightening of fighting, because it goes from fencing to brawling, which I understand, and then the pinnacle of that is chess.
Well,
That's-
chess is like little tiny dudes fighting.
That is the ultimate battlefield.
Exactly.
It's definitely a battle of the mind.
Yeah. They call football large chess.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
There was the big large chess bowl
Yeah.
that happened.
We're not legally allowed to call it what it's really called, which is battle chess.
Okay.
But after Jughead knocks Bret out,
Right.
Everyone gets mad at him. They get him
Jughead? Right.
They put a dead snake. They like staple a dead snake to his.
That
bone.
was some
Taped.
nice
It was
work.
taped. It wasn't stapled.
No,
think
it
it
was
was taped?
nailed. Wait, taped? What kind of tape?
I don't know. I thought I saw tape
Scotch?
on there.
Oh, like, yeah. Masking?
Masking.
Oh,
a little
duh.
bit.
No, I think it was nails. I think you can't get a snake on the wall without a couple of nails, I always say.
Honestly, I bet they probably workshopped it. They were like, "What should we do?"
Maybe it's a combination of both tape and nails.
I
Oh,
bet
some
Jonathan
glue?
was like, grab tape.
Yeah, that's his big line from the episode.
Grab some tape.
He's having he's really struggling with puberty.
Oh,
So
I'm 13.
and Jughead is stressed because there's the whole dead snake thing, very threatening, and then he catches a couple shoulders when he's walking through the hallways. He's like,
Right.
"Yeah, everyone's dropping shoulders into me."
Yeah. Another thing that actually I think worked really well in this episode, which it's crazy to say, but there's not. Riverdale doesn't usually have thematic things in an episode necessarily.
Yeah.
Like it just sort of has things happen over the course of a period of time,
Yes.
which is part of the reason that we love it. But they really, really, really push the title in this episode. Like
yeah.
just the idea of honor and playing out what honor meant to different people in different ways. And I like that quite a bit. I thought that was good and interesting, a different mode on the writing part. And
Yeah.
that's what plays into this Jughead thing here because Donna tells him that, nobody likes Bret at all, but he is one of us. He is on our team. He is the Stonewall Squad. So ultimately, they are going to back him up because if he loses honor, they all lose honor. And I like that. I thought that was a smart, interesting way of coming at that plot
It
line.
was cool,
But
especially.
I understand what they're saying, but it's weird for people to rally around a giant douchebag like that.
Well, but I also think in
I
light
mean,
of
you
what,
do this podcast, right?
yeah. Wow. In light of what we learned later in the episode about the suspicions of Donna, like this speech, I think takes on a lot of value where it's like Donna's saying, we're a group here. And if she ends up being the leader of this group, we all think it's Bret. That makes it make way more sense that she is somehow pushing everyone to target different people and have all these nefarious plans.
Let's keep walking through it.
While Betty finds out that this chess match is happening at a certain time, so she grabs her mom and is like, well, everyone's going to be busy. Let's break into the Skull and Quill secret hideout.
Which I've been waiting for a while.
Yeah, and that place needs to be cleaned, dusted up a little bit.
I'm glad they broke in.
Another nice theme of this episode, I thought, was the fact that there's no security in any schools anywhere in Riverdale, and anybody can walk in and out at any point, which I thought was great.
Yeah,
definitely. But at Stonewall Prep, they do have a silent alarm that makes his watch beep, which I thought was very
delightful.
Funny. It was very funny also because Bret is like, they're playing chess, very intense focus, and he's like, there's a secret alarm. We have to stop.
The way he jumped up was pretty hilarious.
It was very funny. It was
Sean Deppner, we talked about him a bit on our Deadly Class podcast as well. He is funny. Like, he's a funny guy.
And this was very funny.
Yeah.
He plays a good douche.
Yeah, he plays a good douche, and that's a skill.
So they catch Betty and Alice. They are like, what are these tapes?
And I liked how Betty didn't back down. She was just like, yeah, I'm breaking in your fucking secret thing.
Right. And she finds these tapes there, and Bret, and this is an interesting move, Bret is like, no, those are legal tapes. They are given by permission and consent by members of the Quill and Skull. They are confessions. They are not sex tapes. And ultimately, we do see, which we'll get to in a moment, but we do see that the one videotape that Betty takes is Donna's confession tape.
Yeah.
So at least that backs that up. So what do you think at this point? Does Bret also have these sex tapes?
Well, somebody's recording people having sex.
There's definitely something going on in the catcher's mitt that was in their room, right?
Yeah, there's something going on in that catcher's mitt.
Yeah, probably a little mold. Got to clean that off. You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. What the? I'm curious because I suspect that the videotaping of the front door of all the different Riverdale people is not Bret and that any of the Stonewall crew. I think that's going to focus back on the Charles Chick, hero of Riverdale stuff.
Yeah, somehow he's trying to save their doors.
Exactly, he's just keeping track and being like, this house could be needs some renovation.
Sure, your paint's chipping a little bit.
It's chipping, Mr. Chipping,
Mr. and Mrs. Chipping,
Mr. Paint Chipping,
paint chips,
paint chips.
The fact that you both lit up for that is just kind of ridiculous.
We're excitable.
It's great.
We're excitable folks.
We figured out something about the show.
So I think there's a chance that Bret could be telling the truth, but I think those confession tapes are also for bribery. So
sure, both of those things.
Yeah, I think both things are true, but maybe he's not the one filming sex.
We get a cute scene of Jughead and Betty practicing chess that we mentioned before, and then Bret raises the stakes on the whole competition. Yeah. He's like, you lose, I get your pink slip, I get your car, you're going out of town, is basically the stakes of it.
And it was funny because Jughead was like, no, you don't get to just randomly raise the stakes. I don't accept.
I do love that Jughead was given this publishing contract by a shadowy cabal behind the scenes that runs the Baxter Brothers books, and Bret unilaterally can be like, now I get to write them.
Yeah. That's how
based
publishing
on this
works.
school bet.
That's how duels work.
That's how I took over Harry Potter.
Oh.
I challenged J.K. Rowling to a pretty fun game of, I can't think of it.
Flip Cup?
Nope.
Quidditch?
Nope, that would have been good too. Flip Cup, interesting choice. Hopscotch.
Okay.
You made a
the most
gesture.
magical of games.
Cup.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to play a magical game. She's going to be good at magic games. I crushed it, yeah.
Wow, that explains a lot of her recent tweets.
Wait, wow. Interesting.
So they decide to make this bet, and Jughead is like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to win because you're a terrible writer, Bret. And then lays into him in front of everybody, which I thought was great.
And doesn't he say he's a man without honor here?
Yeah. He almost says the title of the show.
Yeah, but he
not
says
quite.
he's a better man than
It was
he is.
weird that he also didn't say Chapter 69. Nice.
Yeah. He should have said also the television show Riverdale, in which we are characters upon.
Yes. But while they're straight up chessing, Alice and Betty do sneak in to find the tapes. We get a quick shot. I like this. They enter the door, and she's clearly putting a bobby pin back in her hair.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's a cute detail.
That's fun.
And they find the false wall, as we talk about. They reveal the tapes, the one with Donna. Bret triggers the silent alarm. And then they finish it up.
Bret doesn't trigger it.
No. He gets the silent alarm. Yeah. They finish it up now as a evil chess match in their evil lair. They're like, well, let's finish it off downstairs.
We got it. Who carried Jonathan? Did you carry the chessboard all the way down here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Jonathan clearly switching, dropped a couple of the pieces. Just kind of
and
switching
then
up a
Jughead throws the game.
Throws the chess
which
match.
I'm so happy about because he realizes, wait a second, I shouldn't be going to an evil school where all these people are trying to hurt me and take me down and get wrapped up in some weird evil thing with all these prep school people. I'm out.
Yeah, so he's leaving Stonewall. Presumably,
should have done it a long time ago.
I like this move as well. I thought this was a smart way of ending
Very happy with Jughead for that move.
It's interesting. I think this is the essential thing that is going to lead to his death.
Yeah.
Because I think I think he is a pawn in the whatever the drama is happening at Stonewall in relation to Baxter Brothers.
That's
Skull
what I
and
think
Quill.
it is.
And I think him leaving the school is messing up those plans, and a price will have to be paid.
Yeah, because they need someone to fill in this Baxter Brothers thing, and because he steps down, that ruins everything. And now, I think
not just anyone can write this childhood fiction.
Yeah.
And then it all ends up with Betty and Jughead chatting. He has no regrets, and Betty reveals she stole the Donna tape. She puts in the tape, and at first it seems like she's confessing to the affair with Chipping. She's using the exact same language she did then.
Yeah.
But at the end, she says, Mr. Cotter, who, as far as...
Cotter.
Cotter?
No, that's the show Welcome Back, Cotter.
Oh, okay. I assume that's where it came from.
From the 70s.
Sure. And they realize, Mr. Cotter does not exist, but it's the same language and everything, and they start to wonder, is Donna the evil mastermind?
And so we touched on this before. That's a weird choice for her to have a fake accusation like that. So I don't think that's what it's going to be. I don't think the show would do that. But it does sort of make you wonder what is going on here.
And this is upsetting because it's like there's this horrible narrative that, you need to believe women, that women come forward and they get pushed aside, and it's like this awful thing. So the show pushing this narrative forward is kind of a negative thing, and I'm surprised that we're still here.
See, I have a bigger problem with it in the span of the other things that happen in the episode, because, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a moment. But even beyond, even if you take the Donna storyline as itself, it's its own storyline. You can dissect it and talk about it. But there are so many different things in different ways that happen with sex tapes and revealing sex tapes and talking about sexual assault back and forth, and people getting assaulted or getting revenge for assault or all of these other things, that it ultimately adds up to, what is this show saying?
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the issue with what happens in this episode.
I agree with you. And I do think whatever the statement is, I don't think the statement is finished.
Sure.
So I hope, and like we talked about before, it feels like something else is going on here, because I don't think the show would point to this, because it is an overly simplistic understanding of these larger issues. So as far as the plot centered around Donna...
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you're going to have the Donna thing, don't also bring Nick back and then be like, hey, remember that sexual assault? Well, guess what? We're going to sexual assault him for revenge. And then it's like, well, what the fuck are we doing? I
think that's what I was saying. Before you get too worked up here, Pete, I think we're in agreement that it's a little convoluted. It's a little confused how they are trying to get across these ideas. We've talked in the past about how Riverdale is not great at doing these issue-driven topics, because they'll do things where they'll start to delve into something and then get to the end and be like, and that's the end of that, and then kind of move on.
Yeah.
Frankly, I know a lot of the fan base would love to see them delve more into issues. Personally, I think that is the wrong mode for the show, because it plays much better in things like what happens to Archie in this episode, which was my favorite plotline by far of this episode.
Yeah.
Because it was ludicrously over the top, but fun, but based in Archie's emotion, without necessarily being issue-based in the same way. So I would love for it to stay in that mode, but I understand that there is a certain push and pull of we can touch on these things. It just doesn't always work.
Right, but if you're going to try to touch on it, try to make a better statement than have a horrible
For
narrative.
sure. We talked about this back in season 2. I think the definitive statement on Nick St. Clair is when they put him on the floor and kick the shit out of him, and that's the last time we ever should have seen him.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're seeing him again, so we will talk about that in a moment.
I also think, I like I was saying, I think the Donna story is not over. I think my prediction is, I don't think she's the mastermind. I think she has been hypnotized. I think hypnosis is sort of something that's going to be coming up in this, and so I think that's why these tapes are there as part of that plot. And I think just the way the plot is moving, we're in this point where it ends, like you were saying, and we're left feeling like, oh wait, this makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's because the story hasn't finished being told.
Yeah, I think this gets to why my bigger problem with was the sum total of this episode as an hour of television
Right.
Yeah.
is it was saying a lot of things in a lot of different directions. And on that note, on that very positive note, I think we're going to move on with an ad break. Let's go to an ad.
Hey everybody, Alex here. You know who are best friends? Betty Cooper and Veronica Lodge. And you know who are best fiends? Bret Weston Wallis and Jughead Jones. And totally coincidentally, that reminds me of one of my favorite mobile games to play right now, Best Fiends. You're welcome for that amazing segue. So this is a game that I've been playing. My wife has been playing it. My daughter has been playing it. My entire family has been playing it nonstop. It truly is so much fun. It's a casual matching puzzle game, so you can play it during commercials while watching Riverdale and jump right in and right out as soon as something crazy happens on the show. It's also playable off the internet, so you can take it on a plane or on a train or something else that rhymes with plane or train. And it also has a neat dynamic for upgrading your characters, which is one of my favorite things to do in games. Plus, they keep releasing updates, so even if you beat it, it never gets old. Now, before you ask if I've beaten it, like Archie, I am always fighting for this town. Except in this case, my town is a game called Best Fiends, so no, I have not beaten it yet, but I'm gonna keep playing. Now, how much money is it, you might ask? Great question. I'm no Hiram Lodge. This is a free download, and you can upgrade by paying for stuff, but there's no paywall. You can actually keep playing it for free forever if you want. Also, unlike Hiram Lodge, we do disclose our financial information, and this episode was sponsored by Best Fiends, but also I was already playing it, so it all worked out. Here's some info you want to know. Engage your brain with fun puzzles and collect tons of cute characters. Trust me, with over 100 million downloads, this 5-star rated mobile puzzle game is a must-play. Download Best Fiends free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's Friends without the R, Best Fiends. And now, back to recapping your favorite teen murder show.
All right, we're back from an ad. I hope you guys liked hearing my voice coming out of my voice. Let's jump back into Riverdale.
I love how
Voice coming out of my voice.
Yeah, I mean, I pre-taped the ad, so I'm just saying that, like...
Hey, how'd that go? Were you in the studio by yourself? Like, all right, Selvin, you can do this.
Yeah, I paid, we got, I think I want to say $3 for the ad, and then I paid $500 for the studio space. So I
Smart.
think that's going to work.
That's good money.
Smart.
That's good money. That's how most online advertising works.
Yes, absolutely. I'm smart.
Should we jump into Veronica's story?
Yeah.
Sure.
And then do Archie last. So we have, or let's do like Veronica.
Well, we should also talk about Toni and Cheryl.
Yes, of course.
Do we want to get into that one first so we can
Sure.
get past the more serious stuff?
Yes.
So Toni and Cheryl's storyline.
Well, first off, the tickle video plot line lives.
Yes.
Lives hard. Lives hard this episode.
I got to tell you, I started to get a little worried at the top of this episode because Kevin goes over to Fags and he's like, here's a fat roll.
So much money.
Yeah.
Well, they're getting $5,000 each, I have to assume, for these tickle videos. And Toni comes over and is like,
yo.
that's a lot of money. What's going on? You got a side hustle? And she's like, and Fags is like, don't worry. It's totally legit. I think you're going to like
Totally
it.
legit. No questions asked.
Totally legit. And Toni seems interested, and I was like, Jesus Christ, are now Toni and Cheryl going to get into tickle videos? And then this show is just going to turn into an hour-long tickle video?
Yes.
I mean, I'm into it, and I love it, but, like, come on.
And did you watch the documentary Tickled?
No,
which
I
is
didn't.
sort of which is actually a great documentary about this sort of tickle video subculture and what a thing it is, and that's where this is coming from, I believe, because the money that they talk about in the documentary is wild.
Yeah.
Great
Wow.
doc, especially if you're like, where would they ever come up with this idea from? That's where
That doc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we get that as just a little low buzz underneath the episode is that tickle videos are happening and popping in Riverdale.
Yeah.
And then ultimately this plot line plays out where Toni is working at the Maple Club. I assume they're both working there either regularly or filling in for Veronica. Not 100% clear. Yeah, because she's out of town. But Toni sees a guy there who's very interested in some business. He and all of his buddies have gotten into Harvard, which is
and they're there to celebrate.
There to celebrate. He wants to rent out the Maple Club. She says, I want to show you the options. And we know it's Nick St. Clair. Toni doesn't know it's Nick St. Clair. Cheryl comes in and sees him, and that moment is awful.
Yeah,
it's
very
just horrible
upsetting.
to see.
Yeah.
And to Madeline Petch's credit, she plays it beautifully.
Yeah.
Just the terror, everything draining out of her as she
Very
runs out.
internally, which I thought was a good... I could have seen it being like a middle-of-the-room scream, and I thought the internal sort of falling apart was well done.
Well, and I think also the way that it played out, because she talks to Toni about it. Toni...
I was a little worried when that happened because it was like Cheryl kind of ran away, and then it was Toni with this sexual predator, and I was like, oh my God, don't leave Toni alone. She doesn't know. So I got a little worried, but I'm glad they had this scene where they were talking.
Yeah, instead they had this talk, and I like the fact that Cheryl says, there are so many things that I have been powerful about. I thought I was going to be okay. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but I thought I was going to be okay with seeing this guy again. I thought I'd moved past that, but clearly I hadn't.
Yeah.
Which seems like a very human reaction to have to that
she
sort
was
of thing.
triggered, and Toni recognized that, and being a very supportive partner, like really helped talk it out with her.
Right, and Toni talks to her about she had a similar experience with her past. She moved past it with friends. I know people have been asking for some sort of backstory with Toni. I don't think this is necessarily it.
That's probably not what people were asking for.
No, I don't think so. But, you know, and I also think like Toni could have related to it regardless of having an experience in her past, just because it is Cheryl, her girlfriend, who she loves.
Sure.
But ultimately, she comes up with this plan to punish Nick St. Clair once again. She welcomes him back to the Maple Club, working with Kevin and Fangs, lures him to a room, presumably drugs him?
Him. She's giving him a series of drinks.
Right. So she drugs him, ties him to the bed, does a tickle video with Kevin and Fangs, or at least Fangs.
I think they're both there.
They're all there?
Yeah, they're both there.
Okay, they tickle him. They show it to Nick St. Clair. Nick St. Clair is like, what did you do? And she says, you ever assault anybody again? You ever come back to Riverdale again? I'm showing off this video.
I'm going to ruin you.
I'm going to ruin you. And Nick is like, ooh, you got me, Toni Topaz.
Yeah.
Didn't love this.
No, it's uncomfortable. Like, it's uncomfortable
Yeah.
to be like, I know what I'll get revenge on this person who drugged my girlfriend. I will drug him.
Yes. And don't get me wrong, I think Vanessa Morgan did a great job.
Yes.
And weirdly, I even like the scene after it, like with contextless.
Where they're hanging out.
Yeah, where they're all hanging out watching the tickle video.
Yeah.
Like with completely divorced from anything else, contextless. It was just fun to see them all hang out.
Yeah. And I understand the idea that this guy gets to walk free after what he did, and it's like, let's punish him again for coming back into Riverdale. But it's still like, it's just a morally difficult thing. And they don't leave us with any sort of like resolution, I feel like. It lets us be like, oh, the characters we like did something sort of fucked up, and the character we don't like was the victim.
Right.
So it's like, what?
Yeah. And again, I think all the actors did a fine job with it. So that's good. It was nice to see Shoni snuggling. Shoni
There's
snuggling.
a big snuggle.
Snuggle. There's a little bit of snuggle going on. Pete, did you like to snuggle?
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime Toni and Cheryl are together and loving on each other, it's great. But yeah, this is just was super uncomfortable, and I was just like, "What are we doing, guys? What is this episode about?"
Yeah. Well, it's about honor. Being men
about honor.
or women of honor.
And shall we jump over to Veronica?
Yeah, let's stop
Woman of
talking
Honor?
about this.
Great. So we go over in Veronica's world. The lodges are all going to NYC.
Well, Veronica says she's going there for a barnyard interview.
Yes,
Yeah.
which
Not
is-
a barnyard interview.
And I got worried because then they were like,
you
hey,
thought she was going to go on to U.S. Acres, right?
Yep.
no,
For a barnyard interview?
no. I thought that old evil
Can I
lodge.
just ask a question? Could you take a little bit of our nonsense this episode? Like,
No.
you're taking no nonsense.
That's right.
Why are you so no nonsense?
Yeah.
Why don't you be a little bit of a helpful little mommy?
There he goes, you fucking asshole. So I thought that old Mr. Lodge there was going to sabotage her interview. That's why
Sure.
she was like, we're going to New York too. I was like, no, Veronica, they're going to, don't let them do this to you again, So I was happy about that new reveal.
Yes, I understand in essence what you're saying, even though the reveal is not great. But yeah, Veronica goes down. She meets Katy Keene.
Fun. It's like
fun stuff.
It's like two Veronicas hanging out.
It is like two Veronicas hanging out.
No, how dare you? Katy Keene is very different.
Yeah, Katy Keene has red lipstick, and Veronica has not
Katy
red
Keene makes her own outfits, is a little bit less bougie than Veronica
Sure.
is. And yeah, she's...
It's kind of like two Veronicas, though, right?
Oh, my God.
I mean, it's close.
I'll tell you, we should check out this Katy Keene show.
No, we really should. I wish we had some sort of podcast called Katy Keene Cast.
That would be
That
a
was
cool.
launching.
Was that our
And now it's
commercial?
time for another advert.
Don't do it to him again.
Yeah. So, yes, we are launching a Katy Keene podcast called Katy Keene
Nice.
Cast.
Say it with a little gusto.
Woo!
Very excited to get in that show. It does seem like a fun show. I like the way Veronica and Katy Keene are hanging out.
I thought they were great together.
Yes.
The way they played out these scenes, it felt like, first of all, Camila Mendez and Lucy Hale, very natural together, which is fun, even though they look very relatively similar, both with the dark
Come on,
hair.
how dare you.
They both have dark hair. Like,
Yeah, they have the same color hair.
I'm sorry, just the Riverdale takes very specific efforts to be like, everybody has different color hair. That's how you
that's
tell
how
they're
you-
different
yeah.
characters. So to have the two characters that are closer on the same show was kind of funny, but they had a good rapport. I liked how it played out. The clothes montage was super fun.
And I feel like a lot of scenes of our main characters hanging out as friends, they are always like busy or stressed or doing something. It was really nice and refreshing to see two characters who are friends talking to each other.
Have a clothes montage, shopping montage.
And hanging out. And I love the scene of them like catching up. And it was the first mention of Veronica and Archie as being in a relationship in so long.
So I want to ask about this. This is the thing that I wanted to talk about earlier, because they're talking about the relationships. Veronica asks Katy about K.O. Kelly, her boyfriend, who's her boxer boyfriend. They are, by the way, just to clarify in case you're not totally clear, Katy Keene takes place 5-ish years after Riverdale.
Yeah.
So this is the beginning of the K.O. Kelly Katy relationship. They are in a relationship when Katy Keene picks up. So there's a lot of teases there. They also talk about Jorge and Molly's crisis and all of these other things that you'll see on Katy Keene. But they talk about their sweet relationship, about Katy and K.O. dating. They held hands at Veronica's quinceanera, all of this stuff. When Katy asks about Veronica going to Barnard, she says, "Is Archie going to move?" Veronica pauses for a second, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And she knows he's not.
Right.
Because what's he going to do?
Well, she pauses and then is like, well, he never...
Yeah, Riverdale needs him.
Yeah.
Right. He never leave, and she says, no, he'd never leave the town. Riverdale needs him. Yeah. My best friends are doing the long distance thing. Maybe we can do it too. But that pause was kind of telling to me.
I agree 100%. I
Don't look too much into that pause.
No,
all I'm saying is like even beyond, like, I joke about Bughead, but I do think they keep going back, or Bugjug as it's known officially, they keep going back and forth with how it feels like they're separating, but then they all keep seeming to come back together. While Archie and Veronica, this felt like, they've sort of moved past each other.
This was, to me, because I know they haven't been in a lot of scenes together this season.
She paused, and you think they're just over?
No, over the course of the season, they never see each other. There's no scenes of them like being cute together, hanging out, having a relationship.
I think we're going to get it, but I think at the very least, this is pointing to there is a idea in Veronica's head of I think we're probably going to both move on after high school. Are we going to do that? And I think they're going to deal with that going forward, whether they do decide to commit to each other going forward and having the long-distance relationship, that's fine. But that split-second pause was so palpable there pointing to me that there is something different going on in Veronica's head, whether she wants to admit it or not.
It's basically in a long distance relationship now. They're each running multiple businesses.
Yes.
They don't see each other.
There's also a very sad thing that happens right after that, which I also thought was really, really well done, where Katy admits that that her mom is sick, which is something that you will see play out almost immediately in Katy Keene in the first episode. So it was kind of sweet and sad to be there.
And also sets up what happens later for Veronica.
Exactly, because then when Veronica gets back, she finds out from Hermione in a pretty intense emotional scene that Hiram was there to talk to a doctor. He has a neuromuscular disorder that is slowly going to wear away at him.
It's caused by being too jacked, by being too just absolutely shredded.
I think it's caused by wrestling just strangers.
I gotta say, opposite to a lot of the other storylines that we've criticized this episode, I appreciated the fact that they're like, vague neuromuscular disorder. I'm glad they didn't put a real name on it.
Agreed.
Or make up a name like Fizzle Sticks or something.
There was another part of me, there's another part of me, though, that was like, is Hiram making this up?
I wrote down here, Hiram is definitely lying, question mark?
Yeah.
It feels like Hiram has been desperately trying to get back in Veronica's good graces while simultaneously fucking up all of her plans.
Yep.
And this feels like his big chess move to get her back. Now,
which
is
fully
fucked up. Yes,
it's fucked up of me to say that if it ends up being that he is absolutely has a degenerative disease, but that to me tracks with what he's been
I was just
doing.
upset that she immediately was like, oh my God. You know, like, this man has done so many horrible, evil things. Like, don't take it at face value. Do a little research.
But it's all a game. It's all a game, I feel like, to them, and the stakes are high in this game, but this is like real shit. Yeah. So if he is lying, he's crossing the next barrier.
That is a lie. Like, that's too far. And I actually don't even think the show would do that necessarily, but I think we've been built up enough with Hiram to not trust him, to think maybe he's doing something there. But the next scene actually went a far way, the way Mark Quinsuelos plays it, to make me think, okay, this is actually real. Because when Veronica comes in, tells him and Hermione that she's going to Barnard, how happy he is for her about it, and then that she has taken the Veronica Lodge name again. He plays it as sweet and pleased and sad and being a real father. So maybe it'll pan out differently in the future, but for right now, I am willing to believe him.
So you're saying you trust Hiram Lodge?
Just
you're saying
based
you trust
on
100%.
100%, no matter what, I trust him.
Just
I would
can't
follow him
believe
to the end of the earth.
all the things that this man has done to Veronica, and she just is like, oh, he's sick. Oh, daddy.
He's my sweet little daddy. That's all I got to say.
Helpful little mommy, sweet little daddy.
Stop being so creepy, please.
It's not creepy. Being a helpful little mommy is what all good mommies do. So let's jump into Archie's nonstop battle episode.
Yes. Oh my God.
So we start off with another Frank dude shows up.
Frank 2.
Frank squared.
Yeah.
Shows up at Andrew's construction and is like, "What's the deal?" Frank himself, I feel like he's so suspicious. He's so suspect constantly. This plot line seems to prove that he's not. That he is someone that Archie should trust.
I think what this plot line goes to is you shouldn't necessarily trust him, but he is a guy who has lived a bad life, ended up in a bunch of bad situations, made bad decisions, and is kind of trapped by that.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there is a sense of he's not just a dark Fred, like a Dark Mirror of Fred, so much as if Archie keeps following his impulses across the board, this is a road he can go down. And ultimately, the place that he reaches is he has that conversation at the end where he's like, I want to be more like my dad.
And he wants to, and he accepts Frank for the messed up dude that he is.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. I hope that's, I don't want to see Frank come back and be a
Yeah,
villain.
I was worried because it was like, it started off like, hey, when's your mom getting home? I'm like, oh, here we go, Uncle Frank.
Yeah, this guy seems like
Yeah.
he's stealing.
And then he's like telling another army story.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, and Archie was like real quick to be like, hey, I have 2 uncles now. Do you want to stay over? Hey, I don't know you, but why don't you stay in my place and I'm going to walk out the door and you can have whatever you want in my house. Like, I was like, Archie, please please stop being so trusting.
And I gotta say, the turnaround where like Archie leaves and this dude Ted tries to kill Frank, I was like, yo, what?
That was crazy.
It was crazy, and it was really well done. I was
my
like,
God.
holy shit! It was like action movie. Like,
Yeah,
real
The
that
fights in
giant
this
Rambo
episode
knife.
were another level for the show.
Agreed.
I think. I'll also mention this guy's full name was Ted Bishop, and a bishop is a chess piece that moves in weird, crazy directions.
diagonal. I don't want to call them weird directions.
I thought you were talking about like
Can you
cable.
imagine being
nuts.
diagonal?
What the fuck? Go straight.
I thought
Go
you were
one
talking about-
space at a time.
I thought you were
Or
talking
like
about
the
fucking
horse,
diagonal.
or the horse, the way the horse does it.
Oh yeah, horseman.
The horse does like little L's.
Yeah.
I thought you were making reference to X-Men like Cable and Bishop, but
No, like he absorbs energy and
Yeah.
shoots it out.
Maybe
He's a
that's
time
what he
traveler.
does. He absorbs fights.
But-
He did. There was that point when Ted Bishop shouted, "I'm from the future.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to kill you. You'll find out in a couple of years." We
but
haven't
good
figured it
thing
out yet.
Archie forgot his phone. That forgetful.
Yeah, man.
Imagine how many times Archie forgets his phone.
This is in all the things that you could not predict on Riverdale. Definitely watching that scene, I was like, "All right, this guy's suspicious."
Yeah.
Or something. The fact that he was a mercenary to kill Frank.
And a giant superhero.
Yeah.
He was like Captain America.
Yes.
I mean,
insane.
he threw Archie around.
Well, we'll get to that in a second because I want to talk about
Well,
that.
and Archie wields his weapon of choice, an egg pan.
Yeah.
Right.
And just wrecks the dude.
Loves
from
eggs.
Kind of
behind the
crazy
back.
that he hit him and then didn't reach down and eat some of the eggs
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
floor.
Archie's hungry. Anytime Archie moves, he needs to eat.
Oh, there's that eggs.
Yeah. All these eggs on the floor.
could eat some eggs. Yeah, so it turns out Uncle Frank was a merc with a mouth, is what I wrote down.
Good.
Question mark.
Yep. Deadpool.
He can't leave town. Archie wants to get backup, so of course they go to FP. FP, very interesting in this episode.
FP is like, he says like 9 times, I'm a cop and a gang leader. Let's trap this deadly mercenary in your gym.
Let's trap this mercenary in your gym. I'm going to dress as a Southside Serpent, get a bunch of Southside Serpents, despite the fact that I have cops who work for me, and I legitimately am a cop, and then I'm going to arrest you as a cop.
Like crazy. Plus, there were like so many people with guns. I was like, he called like 30 people.
Also, I really loved how FP wouldn't. The merc tried to like get out, like, hey, I could tell you some stuff to try to get himself out of the jail cell. And FP's like, nah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, before that, Ted goes, you broke the code. And I'm like, the code of not being killed? The code of not being
The
murdered?
merc code, bro.
What,
Merc
that's don't
code.
call the cops?
Yeah.
What, the merc's trying to kill you?
Yeah, don't call the cops. You just got to get killed.
Yeah.
I think
Motto
that
a
was
motto.
That's merc life.
Everybody
dude.
knows the merc code.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally.
If you're going to live that merc life, you don't call the cops, man.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. Don't.
It's like Pete always says, if you're going to be a merc, don't be a jerk.
Yeah, that's
I
truly
do see that.
common phrase around the Pete LePage household. So Ted's dead in the jail cell.
That's dead, yeah.
Ted's dead,
Yeah,
baby.
drop
Dude,
dead,
the old
Ted.
fake puke. Don't fall for that, man.
Don't
I
fall.
fell for that. I totally fell for that. I don't
What?
have my note right here, but I was like, well, guess Ted's dead. Oh, he's not.
Why would you think he's dead?
Because I trust everything.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, on this show, you got to trust.
You can't.
everything.
That's a
Everything
classic
is
merc
true.
move.
Yeah, it is.
Classic merc.
Classic merc move.
I feel uncomfortable saying
Yeah,
merc.
oh, I just found
I
my
want to say
note.
mercenary.
Ted is dead in prison, vomited on floor, dash. Except not. It's a trick.
Yeah,
That's what
and
I
he
actually-
bent the dude in half, the cop in half.
Oh,
who
my
falls
God.
for
Did
it. That's why I think the line after that is
Oh,
like
my
he
God.
bent him in half.
Jesus.
Really fucked him up.
And
That's pretty
then
insane.
it was hilarious that Archie took a phone call in the bathroom, and it was like, "Hey, it's FP. Merc's loose, bro. The Merc's loose." And Archie's like, "Okay, well, I've got some time." Turns around, boom.
Boom.
Yeah.
Archie versus a trained special forces officer.
Yeah.
Archie holds his own.
Wait, can we talk about the phone call for a second?
Sure.
I know we just talked about that, but I was just trying to find my note here. So Archie got the call from FP, and he said he just about snapped Tubby into
Tubby. Yeah.
the name.
Old Tubby the cop.
Yeah.
Tubby the cop.
I mean,
Popular.
what a crazy detail to just throw in
Yeah.
there that there's a character named Tubby
Well,
who's now
because I
snapped
thought
in
it
half.
was FP who walked in, so FP had to be like, "No, it was Tubby. It
Tubby.
wasn't me."
Right.
It was famous Riverdale
Cop.
police officer Tubby.
Tubby. Yeah.
Officer Tubby.
Yeah.
Officer Tubbs.
Tubbs.
Tubbs. Yeah, okay.
Oh, there we go.
It's a great
For sure.
spinoff.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would watch that show, Officer Tubbs.
Officer.
Yeah, this whole sequence was one of the best things I have ever seen in the history
Archie
of Riverdale.
got thrown through a sink.
This
I don't
is-
think you can get up from
This
that.
was clearly like they saw, and it's crazy that they executed this so well, but they clearly were like, let's do that bathroom fight from Mission Impossible Fallout.
100%.
Oh, wow. I
100%.
thought it was Bad Boys.
Oh, did they do that in Bad Boys?
Yeah.
The most recent Bad Boys?
No, the first one.
For life?
No.
No.
Do you think
Two?
I think they were doing MI.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
With the sink smashing
He
and
should have
everything.
done the snap.
Oh my God! Yeah,
knuckle snap or whatever. Yeah.
Reload his sleeves. That would be great. But I think, like, despite the fact that if it was from Bad Boys or Mission Impossible or whatever, the fact that they executed it so well and it was so exciting and it just kept building and building and building, great.
Yeah.
And then we end it.
Well, wait, I just want to mention, so they're fighting in the bathroom, and this is the thing that I love about it. Like, they're fighting in the bathroom, smashing through the stalls, smashing things.
Shot from
He
above.
Nobody in the
stabs
school
him.
is like running. Anytime
Well,
there's
that's
a
the thing,
fight
is that-
in a school, there's a crowd immediately.
This is my absolute favorite thing that made me fall in love with this action sequence. I was already like, this is so over the top, so ridiculous. He stabs Ted. And then Kevin runs in and says, "What the hell is happening?"
Yeah.
And Archie is like, just shrugs.
Yeah.
He's like,
I don't
Just shrugs at him.
I just
That
like,
reaction
I don't know,
was
man.
the funniest
So
thing.
much to go into.
Welcome
Kev.
to my world, Kev.
And then Kevin says, "This school is insane."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it is,
was.
Kev.
It was very funny.
Oh my God, that whole thing. And then it keeps going.
The
Because it
fight
goes into
continues
the
for-
common room and they wreck the common room.
Which is a very nice room, as we
Yes.
talked about.
Nobody in the school is trying to help
Nobody.
Archie.
Mr.
People are
Honey.
learning. People are learning in class.
Yeah, Mr. Honey is always like, did you break one rule? Except, well, there's a bare knuckle brawl happening in the bathroom. Can't hear that, I guess.
And it ends like all Archie fights ends with another pan to the back of the head.
Oh, there's something like a pan in the back of the head.
Yeah, but Frank comes back.
It's
Frank,
a trophy, actually, in this.
Yes.
Frank comes back, saves the day with a
I have to assume
banger.
it was some like Fred's trophy or something like that, right? And then-
We see it land on the ground, and they don't ever. I thought for sure we were going to get like, wow, Fred's football win.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Which would have
But
been fun.
Frank was like, "Hey, I forgot my cell phone."
is that what he said?
No.
Oh, that would have been fun.
That would have been
I
cool.
forgot
You
it in
should
this
write
school.
Riverdale.
Isn't it funny that Fred and Frank are brothers? Two FR names?
I messed that up when I was writing down notes, and for a brief second, I was like, "Whoa, their names are Ted and Fred."
Yeah.
The weird Burke group.
But I think just to be more creative.
Yeah, but brothers, you get things like that in certain
Fred and
families.
Frank?
Yeah.
Very similar.
So Frank does leave. He leaves the tool belt. He leaves his
I
medal
was
on
so
the bed.
glad he left the tool belt. Like, you can't take another
What are you going to
man's...
do? You're going to go out of town with a tool belt to what? Fix stuff?
Well, it just... Archie
Travel
gave
town
him
to
that
town
tool
fixing
belt.
sinks? Like some sort of...
Archie gave him that tool belt and was like, this was my dad's tool belt. And, like, you don't take another man's tool belt, so I'm happy that before he split town, after he told Archie he would turn himself in, he gave the tool belt
I
back.
got to say, though, I would be super into like a guy travels from town to town fixing sinks and solving mysteries. That'd be
Sure,
pretty
but
sweet.
nice.
you got to buy your own tool belt. You can't take another man's tool belt for
Yeah.
that.
The plumber mystery.
It's like the Baxter Brothers.
That was
but
good. It
for
just rolls on top of your head.
Really fun stuff.
Well, we'll workshop that.
Archie is legit oiled up in this scene.
Oh,
Like
he is.
he's like wearing a towel and he sees his stuff on the bed and he is like, he's covered in oil.
Like he's
like baby oil.
Yes, he baby oiled all over the place, including his little bruise right on his
Exactly.
muscles, which will be fine soon.
Yeah.
It was.
But
I think.
Where's his tattoo? Where's his gargoyle tattoo?
his gargoyle tattoo? Is that still there, or did he get that taken off?
I
He
don't
still
know.
has his serpent tattoo, I think.
I believe so, but
Yeah.
as far as I know, tattoos are, and that's you did.
Well, that was a brand. That wasn't a tattoo.
Yeah,
He was
brand.
branded.
Even worse.
Yeah.
I don't think there's there's temporary tattoos. I don't think there's
I'm sure
temporary brand.
Dr. Curdle does it.
Dr. Curdle cleans
In
it up.
his, in his spare time, yeah.
He cleans up bad brands.
Bad brands.
Hmm.
Dr. Curdle's mortuary and bad brand removal. Yes.
And then we get a sweet scene with FP, who is hanging out with Archie, who spends more time with Archie than Jughead.
Yes.
Brian
And
pretty
they
much.
talk about, as we mentioned, being men of honor and how Fred was a man of honor, and that's what he wants to be, which is very sweet.
And I do like this a lot, as if this episode was about or this last few episodes is about Archie sort of being like, Frank will replace Fred in my life and it'll be fine. And then Frank can't fill that role. And so Archie then goes to another F person, FP.
Yeah.
And FP sort of has the father role to Archie, who needs it.
Another F
Ooh,
father.
who could he go to next? Maybe like somebody named Fletcher or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Fangs.
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 Now,
You talk
there's
to
a father
Fangs.
figure.
You're my dad now.
You're my dad now, Fangs.
You're my sweet little daddy.
Fangs is like, no problem. Let's tickle.
All right, before we wrap this up here, who was the MVP this episode? Justin.
Ooh, really turned it around.
Yeah. We know where Pete's going to go.
I gotta say that, and I feel like I'm stealing your answer. I think Archie was the MVP today. Great Archie episode, great battle. Archie learned some lessons. He continues to be like he's eventually going to be a Mortal Kombat character because Archie cannot lose a fight. Love that about him. Great Archie ep.
Yeah, I agree. I just think I was very mixed about some of the other plot lines here, but the Archie one was good and emotional, and there was that hilarious moment in the middle there. The fight was...
The shrug.
The shrug was so good.
Very funny.
But the fight across the board, like that they can pull off that sort of fight choreography on Riverdale is fantastic. I love that. Pete, what about you? MVP.
Now, you seem to have a different answer to come in.
Yeah, because I was disappointed in the narrative that is moving forward. So I'm going to go with the other half and say that Jughead was the MVP of this episode because he finally realized he's in a place that is not good and he needs to get out of there. So I'm glad that he has evolved enough to realize he shouldn't be pleasing these people who are trying to hurt him.
And how often would you say Jughead?
I would say today.
Jughead today.
One day. Today is that day.
Yep.
Great. If you want to support our podcast, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at the People's Improv Theater Loft in New York. Come on by. We'll chat with you about Riverdale. A couple of places you can check us out socially. Riverdale Dark on Twitter. Riverdale After on Instagram. Riverdale After Dark on Facebook. ComicBookClubLive.com for this podcast and many more. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe. And on iTunes, please do comment. We would really appreciate it. And we'll see you after dark.
You helpful little mommies.